Sadio Mané parked his modest car at the back of Diamond Motors, the flagship dealership he had recently acquired in one of his many business ventures. He got out of his car and took a moment to observe the imposing facade of the building. He wasn't dressed to attract attention, quite the opposite. He wore a simple t-shirt, slightly worn jeans, and sneakers. His attire was his usual. He wanted to observe how the place operated when no one knew the owner was present. Approaching the entrance, he noticed a small group of employees chatting near the reception desk. The faint murmur of laughter and casual conversation drifted through the glass doors. Sadio Mané opened the door, and the air-conditioned interior enveloped him, offering instant relief from the oppressive heat outside. The faint aroma of leather and fresh wax filled the showroom, while bright overhead lights made the rows of immaculate cars gleam. He paused. Sadio perceived the furtive glances exchanged and how their eyes lingered on his attire. There was a subtle shift in the atmosphere's energy, a silent message that spoke louder than words. He wasn't there to jump to conclusions, but to observe. From the other end of the showroom, Mariana appeared, a middle-aged woman with sharp features and an even sharper gaze. Her tailored blazer and impeccably polished heels spoke of authority, while the clipboard she carried under her arm added an air of efficiency. She walked with purpose, her heels clicking sharply against the polished floor. "Excuse me," Mariana began, her voice cool and clipped. "Can I help you with something?" Sadio Mané smiled calmly. "Just looking," he replied, gesturing towards the cars. Mariana's eyes narrowed as she assessed him from head to toe. Her polite smile faltered slightly, revealing something less amiable. "Are you here to buy a car?" she asked, her tone laced with doubt. Sadio nodded, his smile unwavering. "Something like that." Mariana's lips tightened into a thin line. "Well, we cater to a very specific clientele here. Most of our inventory requires pre-qualification. Perhaps I could recommend another dealership for you." Before she could finish, another employee interrupted from the background. "Mariana, the delivery driver, is here." For an instant, her attention wavered, but she quickly refocused on Sadio, as if making sure he wouldn't wander too far. Sadio raised an eyebrow, though his tone remained light. "You're assuming I'm not qualified?" The question seemed to catch Mariana off guard, though only briefly. She regained her composure quickly, straightening her posture. "I'm just trying to save you some time," she replied with a forced smile. "These vehicles start in the six figures. Perhaps I can steer you towards something more accessible to your budget." Sadio Mané's expression didn't falter, but internally, he couldn't help but note Mariana's choice of words. His calm composure remained intact, though the subtle sting of her assumptions was undeniable. For a moment, the tension hung suspended in the air as Mariana looked at him expectantly. Sadio shifted his attention to the showroom, and though luxury cars didn't interest him, he feigned admiration for one of the nearby vehicles. It was a sleek, silver coupe with an aggressive design. His fingers grazed the door handle as he glanced back at Mariana. "Nice car," he said casually. Mariana's eyebrows knitted together barely, but she quickly forced another smile. "Yes, it is. Perhaps when you're ready to do some serious research, we can schedule an appointment. For now, I'd ask that you don't touch the vehicles." Sadio lingered for a moment, considering her words, before releasing the car handle. "All right. What would you recommend for someone like me?" Mariana blinked, surprised by the directness of his question. Before she could respond, Sadio added, "If you think you know what I need, I'm all ears." Mariana's polite facade cracked for an instant, revealing a flicker of impatience. "Perhaps something more economical. I can give you directions to a dealership that specializes in used vehicles." Sadio offered a slight smile that didn't reach his eyes. He had seen enough. "That's an interesting assumption," he said softly. The statement hung in the air, and for a brief moment, Mariana hesitated. Then, she straightened her shoulders and regained her professionalism. "I'll be back with a list of options," she said, turning and walking away briskly. Sadio watched her go, his face impassive. Then, he turned his gaze back to the silver coupe, his reflection staring back at him from the polished finish. This promised to be an interesting day. Standing in the center of the showroom, Sadio Mané kept his hands in his pockets as he surveyed the rows of cars. He wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but Mariana's dismissive attitude was hard to ignore. Around him, the staff had resumed their conversations, though he occasionally caught furtive glances in his direction. It was the kind of scrutiny he was used to by now, the silent judgments, the loaded glances. Mariana returned shortly after, clipboard clutched tightly as if it were a shield. Her brisk pace and strained smile betrayed her obvious irritation. "All right," she said, stopping a few feet from Sadio. "I've compiled some options that might be more suitable for your situation." Sadio tilted his head slightly. "My situation?" "Yes," Mariana replied, her tone sharp, as she handed him a printed sheet. The list contained used vehicles with detailed descriptions and price tags far below the dealership's standard offerings. These are more accessible models, reliable, economical, and very practical. Sadio took the sheet and looked at it for a moment, his expression as placid as ever. This day was proving to be more revealing than Mariana could possibly imagine. Sadio Mané took the list without a word, his eyes scanning it quickly. A used sedan, another older model, a compact hybrid. His lips twitched in a slight smile of amusement, but he quickly masked it. He calmly folded the paper and tucked it into his jacket pocket. "I appreciate the effort," he said, his tone completely neutral. Mariana seemed momentarily disarmed by his response, though she quickly recovered. She placed her hands on her hips with a decisive air. "Look," she began, lowering her voice as if she were about to reveal a secret. "I'm just trying to be realistic with you. Diamond Motors isn't for everyone. I don't want to waste your time." Sadio looked her directly in the eye, his expression still calm, but there was an undeniable firmness in his gaze. "And what exactly makes you think I'm not your ideal customer?" Mariana hesitated, though only for the briefest of instants. "I've been in this business a long time," she replied, crossing her arms. "I know when someone is out of their league." "Out of my league?" Sadio repeated, his tone neutral, almost reflective. "Interesting." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Mariana's eyes. However, she decided to press on. "I'm just being honest. It's better to be upfront than let someone walk away disappointed." Sadio let out a soft chuckle, shaking his head slightly. "Honest. I like that. How about you call the dealership manager? I think together, we can find a solution." Mariana's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "The manager? Really?" she asked, her tone laced with disbelief. "That's right," Sadio replied lightly, almost as if he were having a casual conversation. "I'd like to speak with him, or her." Mariana's lips twisted in an unconvincing attempt at a smile. "Well, that's not possible. The manager is a very busy person." "I'm sure he is," Sadio agreed. "But perhaps you could call him. Let him know I'm here. I think he'd want to meet me." Mariana's smile tightened, and it was clear she was beginning to lose her patience. "Look, sir," she said, her tone now sharper, "I'm trying to be as polite as possible, but this is getting ridiculous. I have other customers to attend to. If you're serious about purchasing a car, we can schedule a meeting with one of our sales advisors." "Otherwise," Sadio interrupted her, his tone still calm, though with a slight edge of firmness that didn't go unnoticed. "Otherwise what?" Mariana narrowed her eyes, letting out a frustrated sigh. "Otherwise, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Or call security." The words hung in the air, charged with tension. Sadio remained motionless, his gaze locked on Mariana's. For a moment, it seemed as if the entire showroom held its breath. Slowly, Sadio reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "All right," he said calmly, scrolling through his contact list. "I'll make the call myself." Mariana frowned, bewildered. Who are you calling?" she asked, unable to hide her astonishment. Sadio didn't answer immediately. Instead, he glanced around the showroom, his gaze settling on the employees who were now watching intently. "I guess we'll find out," he said, his tone almost playful. The tension in the room was palpable. Mariana shifted uncomfortably. The room seemed frozen in time. Mariana fidgeted with her clipboard, though her movements were stiff and deliberate, betraying her growing unease. Sadio, on the other hand, remained standing casually beside one of the luxury SUVs, his relaxed demeanor only adding to the tension. The few employees scattered around the room whispered amongst themselves, casting furtive glances at the unfolding scene. It was clear that everyone was waiting for something or someone. The sound of the main door opening broke the silence. A smartly dressed man in a navy suit entered, his polished shoes clicking softly against the tiled floor. His expression was serious yet warm, and his eyes immediately found Sadio Mané. "Mr. Mané," the man said with a broad smile, extending his hand as he approached. "It's good to see you." Sadio returned the handshake with a firm grip, a small smile pulling at the corners of his lips. "Thanks for coming, Alex. I appreciate it." The room collectively stiffened. Mariana's clipboard nearly slipped from her grasp as her eyes darted between Sadio and Alex, the regional director of the dealership. Her confusion quickly morphed into visible alarm. "Mr. Mané?" Mariana repeated, her voice unsure. Alex turned to her, his demeanor shifting from friendly to something more professionally curt. "Mariana, I see you've already met Mr. Mané." Mariana blinked, opening and closing her mouth as if searching for the right words. I didn't realize. Alex asked, his tone soft but firm. He's the new owner of this dealership. Apparently, this hasn't been an ideal welcome. Sadio raised a hand to stop him. "It's all right, Alex. I think Mariana and I got off on the wrong foot." His voice was calm, but there was a weight to his words that made the entire room lean in. Mariana's face paled, and she took a step back, her clipboard clutched to her chest like a life preserver. I'm so sorry," she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't know." "Didn't know what?" Sadio asked, his tone still soft but firm. "That I could own a place like this? That someone like me could actually belong here?" Mariana's eyes widened, and for a moment, she looked completely lost. "I didn't mean," she started to say, but Sadio raised a hand, interrupting her. "It's all right, Mariana. Really." He took a step closer to her, his voice dropping low enough that everyone strained to hear. "But let me ask you something. If I hadn't been the owner, would you have treated me differently? Would you have given me the same respect you'd give someone who walks in here dressed in a suit and tie?" Mariana opened her mouth, but no words came out. The silence in the room was deafening. Sadio nodded slowly, as if her silence were answer enough. Then he turned to Alex, and his voice took on a new authority. "Let's gather everyone in the conference room. I think it's time we had a little chat about how things are handled around here." The employees began to file into the sleek conference room, the air thick with tension. The room felt several degrees hotter, more suffocating. Mariana sat near the back, her usual confident demeanor now replaced by a nervous stillness. Sadio stood at the front, calm and composed, his presence commanding the room, drawing the attention of everyone present. Alex remained near the door, arms crossed and expression unwavering, as he watched the staff take their seats. The murmur of whispers quickly died down as Sadio cleared his throat. His gaze swept across the group. "Thank you all for joining me on such short notice," Sadio began, his tone measured but firm. "For those who don't know, my name is Sadio Mané, and as of last month, I am the new owner of Diamond Motors." Murmurs of surprise rippled through some of the employees, reactions ranging from curiosity to embarrassment. Mariana sank lower in her chair, avoiding eye contact. "I came here today for a reason," Sadio continued, his voice firm. "I wanted to see how this dealership operates when no one knows who I am. I wanted to experience what a potential customer might feel walking through these doors." He let the words settle for a moment before continuing. "What I experienced today was disappointing. I was judged, not by what I could contribute, but by how I looked. And I'm not here to single anyone out, but we need to talk about what that says about the culture of this dealership." Mariana shifted uncomfortably in her seat, her face flushing. Sadio's eyes flicked towards her briefly, before returning to the group as a whole. "This isn't just about me," he said calmly. "It's about every person who walks through those doors. Every customer who doesn't fit someone's preconceived notion of what a luxury car buyer looks like." One of the younger salesmen tentatively raised his hand. Sadio nodded towards him. "Go ahead." "Mr. Mané," the man began nervously, "I think most of us try to treat customers fairly, but sometimes it's hard not to make assumptions." Sadio nodded thoughtfully. I understand, he said softly. We all have biases, whether we like to admit it or not. But here's the thing. It's not enough to try to be fair. We have to actively challenge those biases. We have to create an environment where everyone feels respected, regardless of their appearance, their background, or anything else. Sadio paused, letting the words sink in before continuing. This dealership has earned a reputation for excellence. But excellence isn't just about the cars we sell. It's about the experience we provide. And from now on, that experience is going to be built on respect, inclusion, and fairness. There was a ripple of agreement in the room, though some faces remained cautious. Sadio's gaze settled on Mariana, who sat frozen, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Mariana, Sadio said softly but firmly, I want to give you a chance to speak. Is there anything you'd like to say? All eyes turned to her. Mariana hesitated, her voice barely audible when she finally spoke. Her tone was low, but clear. I made a mistake, she admitted, her cheeks flushed. I misjudged you, and for that, I am truly sorry. Sadio nodded, his expression difficult to read. Thank you for saying that, he replied. I hope this experience serves as a reminder for all of us, not just you. Because change starts with accountability. He turned back to the group, his gaze firm. Moving forward, we'll be implementing new training programs to ensure this dealership embodies the values I believe in. Every customer deserves to be treated with dignity. No exceptions. If anyone has a problem with that, now is the time to speak. The room fell into absolute silence, broken only by the low hum of the air conditioning. No one said a word. Sadio let the silence stretch, long enough to emphasize his point. Before speaking again, his voice serene but resolute. Good, he said finally. I'm glad to see we're all on the same page. Change isn't always easy, but it is necessary. And this dealership is going to lead by example. He moved a step away from the table, letting his hands rest lightly on its edge as he leaned forward slightly. Let me be clear. I didn't come here today to humiliate anyone. I came to understand what kind of culture I've inherited and how we can make it better. His eyes moved towards Mariana, who still sat quietly near the back. And that goes for all of us, Mariana. Mariana looked up, and her eyes met his for the first time. I understand, she said, her voice shaky but sincere. I was wrong, and I'll do whatever it takes to make this right. Sadio nodded with an expression of understanding. I believe in second chances, he said simply. But accountability comes first. I'll meet with you one-on-one to discuss next steps. For now, let's focus on moving forward. He straightened, turning his attention back to the rest of the team. We don't just sell cars here. We build trust, create relationships, and embody a standard of excellence. If you're on board with that, I'm here to support you every step of the way. There was a murmur of agreement, this time stronger and more genuine. The staff seemed to relax, and the initial tension began to ease, giving way to a renewed sense of purpose. Even Alex, who had remained silent by the door, nodded his head in approval. Sadio smiled slightly, the kind of smile that suggested both relief and determination. All right then, let's get back to work. And remember, the way we treat people matters more than anything we sell. As the employees began to file out of the room, Sadio caught Mariana lingering by the door. She approached hesitantly, her hands twisting nervously. Mr. Maine, she began in a low voice, I just want to thank you for giving me the chance to do better. I won't let you down. Sadio looked at her for a moment before responding, his voice firm. I hope not, Mariana. Actions speak louder than words, but I believe people can change if they're willing to try. She nodded seriously. Sadio watched her go before turning to Alex. Let's schedule a staff meeting next week, he said. I want to make sure everyone understands what's expected of them going forward. Alex smiled, his respect for Sadio evident. You got it, boss. When Sadio returned to the showroom, he glanced around at the cars, the polished surfaces reflecting the afternoon light. This wasn't just about running a dealership. It was about creating something bigger, a space where people were judged by their character, not their appearance. And Sadio was ready to lead the way.